The Business Advisory Group presents a webinar series, Surviving, Thriving, and Growing Your Business Through the Pandemic. Each of these webinars features New England Provisors members. The Business Advisory Group connects professional expertise within the Provisors Network with the resources that business owners need to improve the value, efficiency, and profitability of their businesses. Each of the sessions, starting on September 29 and continuing through November 18, feature provisor experts in each of the categories noted. All of the sessions begin at 2 p.m. Eastern and will be rebroadcast over our YouTube channel. We hope you enjoy the sessions and contact each of the experts if you have questions that are important to you as a business owner. Thank you.
Well, good afternoon, everyone, and welcome. I'm Lee Adelson, today's moderator and member and co-founder of the Business Advisory Group, along with my partners, Dominic Grew and Warren Rutherford, here today. The mission of the Business Advisory Group is to provide the resources, knowledge, and expertise of our network to help business owners survive, thrive, and grow during the pandemic and beyond. Today, our session will discuss marketing and new perspectives. We're going to discuss how marketing professionals can assist business owners to grow and thrive in the current economic climate created by the pandemic. A few suggestions for our session. On the top of your screen, under View Options, we suggest that you uncheck side-by-side mode and set the zoom ratio to window. We ask that if you have any questions, please list them in the Q&A box, and we will address those questions as we present them during our session. A reminder, our session is being recorded, so thank you for attending. Before we begin, let's have our presenters, Katie Leeman, David Greenwood, and Andrea Gabrielle, introduce themselves. I'd also like to have Warren Rutherford, our co-host for today's session, and Dominic Grew, handling the audio-visual, to introduce himself as well. Katie, welcome, and thank you for joining us today.
Hi, Lee. Thank you so much for having me today. My name is Katie Leeman. I am the founder and principal of Leeman Communications Collaborative. We work primarily on helping organizations and people communicate with ease in 3 ways: through brand research and strategy, through internal and external communications, and through inter and intrapersonal communications.
And David, good afternoon. How are you today?
I'm doing great. Thanks, Lee. My name's Dave Greenwood, and I run what I would call a digital PR firm. I take my years of experience in traditional PR and put that into content marketing. And it's kind of 3 buckets. It's podcast production. It is ghostwriting, blogs, website content, articles for people, and then social media video, really engaging video. So that's kind of the 3 buckets that I stand in.
Great, David. Looking forward to hearing what you have to say today. Andrea, good to see you again. Welcome.
Thank you. Good to see you. So I am the president and owner of Neptune Web. For 20 years, we've been offering leadership and website design, development, and digital marketing services, leveraging some proven ROI strategies to help our clients drive brand awareness, generate leads, and grow their businesses for today and for the future. We do this for startups, small and mid-sized businesses. It's good to be here again.
Thanks, Andrea. Glad to have you as well. Warren Rutherford, today's co-host. Good morning, or good afternoon, Warren.
Thanks, Lee. Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Warren Rutherford. As the owner of the Executive Suite, I provide management coaching, training, and talent assessment systems to businesses in all things solving people problems. I'm looking forward to this afternoon's session. Thanks.
Right. Thanks, Warren. And Dominic, good afternoon to you, handling our audio visual.
Yeah, good afternoon, everybody. Dominic Grew. I'm the founder and owner of Elevate Business Coaching, and I work with business leaders, really giving them an outside perspective that they need to manage through change and to accomplish the goals that they have in their career and in their business. And I will be handling the AV stuff today, so thanks.
Thanks, Dominic. And mentioned earlier, I'm Lee Adelson, financial representative with the Bullfinch Group. I provide uncommon thinking to create uncommon results for business owners by implementing insurance strategies to attract, retain, and reward owners and their key employees, as well as for their transitions due to growth, sale, succession, and retirement. For today's session, Katie, David, and Andrea are here to discuss the following topics: how a business owner can create a vision for themselves, develop brand strategy, incorporate effective content, and what digital marketing really means. Panelists, let's begin. Katie, we're going to start with you. You work with business owners as a brand strategist. For the audience, can you please describe how you work with business owners to create a brand, and what is the strategy behind creating it?
So I'm going to share a presentation and we will walk through the details here. So first, I want to address something. Not every business owner understands that the issues they may be facing at a certain time have to do with their brand. We're going to take a fictional company, say a $20 million product company in the gift space, and this is going to this will play into all of our marketing experience of everyone on the call. That we all have interaction with clients that may come to us with these concerns. Sometimes they say, no one knows about us. You know, we do an okay business, but we could be doing better. Our competition gets more attention than we do. No one, we think we do just as well as they do, but they're getting more business. It's hard for us to talk about ourselves. We don't know what to say. And when we try, we disagree on wording. This is a big one that I deal with a lot. We don't know what to say, or our marketing materials are all over the place. We have many messages. They're all competing and none of it says the same thing. Our website is out of date and doesn't have the right functionality. That's something Andrea can discuss a little bit later. We know we need to reach out to our clients more, but the options of how to do that are really overwhelming. There are many channels by which to market these days, and they can get very confusing. That's something that David and Andrea can address a little bit later. We need to sell, but we don't have the staffing to get it done. We need to start to automate it. That's something Andrea can discuss. Our social media is not regularly updated and it seems stale. Social media can be really overwhelming. It takes a lot of effort these days. David will address that later. We just don't know how to get the word out. So we're going to start this process by talking about brand, because brand is really key to aligning your what is essentially your sales and identity strategy with your business strategy. So what is branding? Well, a lot of people think brand is your logo. A lot of people think brand is a tagline. People think brand is your website. Your brand is more than that. Your brand has connection through all pieces of your business. It combines strategy. It articulates and places you in the marketplace by way of your competitive advantage. What do you do that's different and better than anyone else? It establishes that essential thing, trust, between you and your constituencies. It starts to either build that or maintain it as time goes on. It articulates your value. And this is something we'll talk a bit about in terms of how to really understand what your value is. It articulates your differentiation. How are you better than the organization that from the outside may look exactly like yours? There are things that are different about every single organization. Even if you believe there isn't anything, we can find it, because every organization is made up of people and people are different. And the reasons we're in business are different. And that's one thing that a really strong brand can bring. Your brand is your identity. It also is your logo, your colors, the imagery you use, all of those things. That visual identity is a key part of your brand. Again, it's not the only thing, but it is a key piece. It's your marketing mix. We're going to talk a little bit more about what that is, what your marketing mix is, how to understand all of the channels that we have at our disposal. But the most important thing about your brand is that you have to hone in on why you're doing what you're doing. And this is for some people a very easy question to answer. For others, it's very difficult. The goal is not for us to do business with everybody. we want to do business with people that understand and align with our values and what we do and believe the things that we believe. And it's important for us to be able to articulate those things. Something that I see a lot of small and medium-sized businesses getting into is trying to appeal to everybody. And the trick with a strong brand is that you're going to attract more of the people that you want, and you might repel the people that you don't want. And that is okay. That is the way that we position ourselves for growth, is to be sure that we're articulating who we are directly to the people who need and will benefit from what we have to provide. Branding, there is a process to brand. It does not happen overnight. One of the first things that I do in my process that I think is really critical in any branding process is to conduct research. I undergo qualitative and quantitative research conducted within the organization, with the competitors, and with your customers, because your customers have a really, really good idea of the value that they derive from your work. It is essential to engage them in this process and to hear from them, and for them to articulate what you do, because sometimes they do a much better job of explaining what you do better than you do. So we do that through qualitative interviews, through focus groups, through surveys, and collecting all of that information and analyzing it. We take that and then we start to link it to the business strategy. How is this all need to come together? Because if you're not aligning with the business strategy, you're having two separate things that are floating in space and they're not working together. The goal of a brand is to bring you business and to make you successful. So it has to link to your goals. The next step is to start to verbalize that competitive advantage. From all of the research that we have, we're able to see how you can uniquely stand out in the marketplace. What are the things you're doing different and better than your competition? What is your value? What is your value proposition? What is your competitive advantage? All of that stuff, this is critical. Being able to articulate this really clearly and concisely and effectively is key. Usually I come up with a huge suite of language that we can use throughout marketing materials, on your website, in any space where you need to communicate who you are, who you do it for, and why. After that, we start to design that visual identity. So the verbal piece is great, but it's going to show up somewhere, and it has to have a consistent and unique visual identity. That's where logos and color palettes and fonts and all of those design aspects come in. Your website these days is often the first piece that we create after either revamping a brand or creating a new brand. And Andrea can talk a little bit more about that later. From that, we create a marketing plan. So the brand by itself is nothing without a marketing plan. You need to be able to consistently execute that message over and over and over and over again through many, many different channels. Your customers are in many different places, and you need to know where they are. That's part of the initial research that we do. Where are your customers? Where are they listening to you? How are they responding to your messages? We can there are a lot of options now. If your customers aren't on Twitter, you probably shouldn't be on Twitter. It's a waste of time and energy. We do not have to be everywhere. We can choose the channels that are most effective for us. And then we manage those assets going forward. In very large organizations, we have 500-page brand Bibles and handbooks. In smaller organizations, it can be much, much smaller. But aligning by those rules and sort of regulations that we've put together in the beginning is really essential to keep the brand from kind of disintegrating over time. Oops. So you may be aware of an awareness continuum, and this brand is really critical to making sure that we're moving people along this continuum. What some people sometimes think is that, oh, I've created a new brand and I can get somebody who's never heard about me to buy my product overnight. Well, unfortunately, it doesn't quite work like that. We have to kind of follow a continuum. We need to go through an awareness transitions of between awareness categories. So awareness, it's going to take over 7 introductions for somebody to even remember who we are. If they don't know who we are, 7 introductions for them to remember that we exist. And part of that is being in the right place at the right time. Again, choosing the channels where your prospects and the people that you want to be working with are, instead of just being everywhere all the time. that understanding of what makes you unique and special, that key to your brand, articulating that, what makes you better, what makes you different. At that point, once somebody understands, aware of who you are and understands what makes you different, they're starting to consider their options. They may have a different vendor or using a different product. They're starting to think, maybe I should make that change. Maybe that's something that's good for me because I'm getting an additional value from this other organization. At that point, we're getting close to purchase. When they finally purchase, the benefits that they receive have to outweigh the last brand that they purchased. It has to be better for them in some way. And that doesn't necessarily mean you need to have more features or options. It just needs to be a better fit for them. And it has to have a better alignment with whatever values that you've articulated and what values your customers have. And the key here at this point is to make that customer, that first time purchaser, into a loyal customer. And at that point, your brand can be carried forth through your most loyal customers. And that's what we are all striving for. We want our brand to be, our customers to be brand ambassadors. We want them to be able to articulate why we do the things that we do for us, which is even more powerful. I mean, just look at the usage of things like Yelp or other kinds of reviews. Oftentimes these days we read those things before we even read anything that the company has to say about themselves. And this is sort of branding 3.0. This is where it is now, is that we can say everything that we want, but if somebody else isn't saying those things about us, we have a problem. So we want to get to the loyalty part. I spoke about marketing mix a minute ago. What is a marketing mix? What can it look like? And these are just a few options, but we have a website, we have mobile, we have email, we have advertising and paid placement, we have social, we have live events, in-person opportunities, we have webcasts and podcasts, we have word of mouth, we have print. There are many, many options here. It's overwhelming. It is advisable to have people who know how to do this stuff in your corner. Trying to do all this yourself is quite a task. But the critical piece here is that all of these things as part of the marketing mix have to be aligned with your brand. And if you don't have that brand strategy in the center, you're going to be sending mixed messages. Your things aren't going to look like they're coming from the same organization. There's a lot of opportunity for what I call fracture, which it means that you're losing an opportunity to get a very effective message across to your prospects and existing customers. Something that's also really important to consider and interesting to consider, and there's a woman named Susan Fournier who is the dean of the Boston University School of Business, Classroom School of Business, who is a master of this concept, which I find really interesting, is your customers, you have a relationship with them, but they also have a relationship with you. And you can characterize those relationships with you in terms of human relationships. And we can all think of examples like this in our own lives, where we may feel very invested in a brand. We may have a marriage with a brand. There is no way we're going to use another brand. This is the brand. This is the product or service for you. There may be one that you're sort of dating. You use the product now and again. Maybe you try different products. You're not fully committed. You could have a friendship with a brand. You see where I'm going with this. You can be, I love the word frenemy. You can be a frenemy with a brand. You may use it, but maybe you don't like it, but you don't know what other options you have. Acquaintance, a fling one time, or you can be divorced. You can maybe dislike a brand and have a bad relationship with it. And it's fascinating to sort of humanize that relationship with brands. And like I said, if you start to think about the brands you're really loyal to, you may feel some of these human feelings toward brands, because again, a brand is an embodiment of values. So it makes sense that we have human relationships with those things, even though they are not necessarily human. And I want to address something that is important today, marketing today, the challenges of the brand today. We have a lot going on in the world. We don't have to tell anybody that. We've got a pandemic, we've got social unrest, we've got politics. Here's the important thing to know about your brand today, is that all of these things affect your brand. The things you address or don't address right now affect your brand. The way you address them affects your brand. And I think if you're grappling with how to address or not address these items, you have to go back and look at your brand values. And there are brands that have come out and stood for one thing or another, and they have lost customers, and then they've also gained customers because they have, again, sort of taken that stake that they've already put in the ground and grounded it even deeper and said, this is really who we are. And this is really what we stand for. And again, you may be attracting new customers, but you may be repelling other ones. It's just another way to be connected to who you are and who you want to serve. So if you're on the fence about any of these issues and whether you should address or not address them, go back to why you're in business and who you're serving, and really take a good, strong look at that. And that should give you some guidance around what you should or shouldn't talk about. And speaking of content, I would like to turn it over to David, who will talk more about creating content in order to support the marketing mix behind your brand.
David, moving on to David Greenwood. Katie, I had a question for you, and to check with Dominic if we had anything in the queue. You see a lot of businesses, Katie, work at this. What are some of the common things that they don't get or don't see or miss when it comes to putting together a brand and the identity? You've covered a lot of comprehensive areas. What do they sometimes miss?
I think they miss oftentimes a thorough look or understanding of their competition. And your competition doesn't always look like companies that are exactly like yours. Competition could come from many different directions, and understanding what that looks like. So I'll take, for example, I work with professional theaters. Theaters have competition from Netflix. Theaters have competition from, online gaming. They have things that you may not traditionally say, well, I'm offering this play and this theater's offering this play, but the things that are adjacent to that space that may be taking somebody's time and attention away from an experience that you want them to have. So I think thinking, and that really goes to your strategy too, like what space are you occupying? Really understanding that and really understanding the risks of that competitive space and how to really occupy it, or really just make an argument, a really strong argument for why you're a better use of time and money than what somebody might choose.
Right. And sometimes when a business owner is competing with another business, they may want to be like them and not differentiate themselves as much.
You're exactly right. I hear that all the time. Look at my competitor's website. It's so beautiful. I want to look just like them. No, you don't. No, you don't. Please don't do that. I mean, this is a fallacy. Please don't do that. You don't want to look like them. You may think that they've got it all together, but here's the thing, they're not you. And if you try to slap that brand on yourself, it's insincere. It's fake. It's wrong. It's because it's not you. And that yes, that is something I talk a lot about with clients.
So one of the key things is to really be true to yourselves and what your mission is as a business.
Yep. Why did you go into business in the first place? Who do you want to work with?
Exactly. And Warren, do we have any questions in the queue there?
Yes, we do, Lee. We have one question, and it's Katie. It's for you, and it's related to the following. When you were talking a little bit about brand and vision, image, the question concerns itself with who should be involved in the discussion to create this vision thing.
It's a great question. So typically, it really depends on the size of the business, but no matter the size, the head of the organization has to be involved in this. The business owner or founder, if it's a smaller business, the CEO, if it's a larger business. Typically, this is something that involves and should engage the senior leadership of an organization. It affects all pieces of the organization. And if the organization doesn't have a marketing director, then, they're going to need somebody to carry it forward afterward. But typically they do have a marketing director. This is done in concert with them as well. But definitely, again, needs to really involve the senior leadership. It's critical.
Thank you.
That's great. Katie, you mentioned the next section would really be to address implementing some of the tools and the concepts that you've put together. So David, talking about that, your area of expertise is in the areas of developing meaningful content. Could you share with us a little bit about how your process works to do that?
Yeah, I mean, in an ideal world, the process would jump off of what someone like Katie and even Andrea would put together. And I know Andrea is going to talk a little bit about that. But in terms of what Katie would produce, you would look at the brand, you would look at the messaging that she has come up with. And she even talked about, she comes up with a whole host of words that you might be able to use that resonate with the brand. And then you would share that with the organization, come up with content, and then execute on various things that I know we're going to talk about in a minute, different strategies and tools and tactics and what have you. I will share with you that a lot of times I find businesses do not plan and they just want to go ahead and pull the trigger. And sometimes you see that in smaller organizations. Sometimes it works because they know what they need to get out there. Sometimes it doesn't. But like I said, in terms of a process, you would jump off of what Katie did. And, we could talk about SEO and building content. And Andrea would have a strategy about that, about what content and where that needs to be placed.
Okay. And, why is it that professionally created content is so valuable for a business as opposed to them doing it themselves? What do they make? What are the hits and misses along those lines?
Well, let's take video, for example. You could have poor video quality. You could have poor audio quality. You could have inadequate editing, lighting, and everything else. And I think if that looks poorly and you're pumping that out and people are seeing that, that is not going to depict your brand in a favorable light. So you need to take the steps, whether you are executing on your own, whether you have somebody executing it, or whether you're in a shared model, which is the ideal plan, to make sure that you're taking a step back and making sure that you can execute professionally, whether it's the writing or the video or the audio, or other platforms.
Yeah. Shared, you mean implementing professional advisors to help you do that?
Yeah, I mean, I find that if you're going to 100% push off your, say, social media to a company, I don't think that's going to work well. There needs to be some shared responsibility in that.
Right. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. Makes sense. And,
Yeah.
and David, what are you seeing that works really well when it comes to promoting your ideas and your brand in a digital world?
I think right now, if we're talking people in a B2B setting, I think LinkedIn is where you want to be. LinkedIn video is working very well. And to bring that to another level, making that video look good. So nice headlines, making sure that you're using a service or a company that can caption those videos and make them engaging, make them reflect with your brand colors, those types of things. That's going to set you apart, and we can talk about it in a minute, but I think a lot of people maybe get a little lazy on social media. They post something, they walk away and see if it's a hit or a miss. So, video and natural video, I think is something that, people get to know you. So if you're going to survive in this kind of digital PR world, or digital marketing world, you're going to have to get good on camera. You don't have to be a TV anchor, but you got to be comfortable on camera. The other thing, quite frankly, and I talk about a lot, is podcasting. And I have said in a lot of kind of networking groups and what have you, that I still think the general embracing of podcasting isn't totally there yet in the business world. Some of the big brands get it, smaller brands get it, some don't. And if I can just create a scenario for people. So say you create your own podcast and you go ahead and you brand it, and it follows all the guidelines that Katie would put into place. You start interviewing people. That podcast gets on a platform that gets into iTunes and Google Podcasts and Spotify and everything else. So from there, you're beginning to grow a new audience with those platforms. Now you take that podcast and then you write a 4, 5, 600 word synopsis of your podcast, and you put that on your website, and that creates content on a regular basis for your podcast. Now you take a snippet of your podcast, maybe 60 to 90 seconds, and you turn that into a quick little soundbite for social media. You tag your guest sees that, your guest shares it. And then on top of that, you ask your guest to share the podcast on their website. So you're talking 5 or 6 things you can do just on a single interview that can not only increase your audience, increase your brand awareness, but also increase your network substantially. So podcasting, being a guest on a podcast, I like to say it's kind of the new PR. There are not a ton of media opportunities right now. So you can get on a podcast and kind of experience and enjoy the same benefits that I just talked about by hosting your own podcast. And I think every time you either create or participate in content like this, you're increasing your network. So one other thing that, and Andrea will probably speak to some of this as well, is blogging. And I will willfully admit that maybe not everybody will read your entire blog. But one of the things we do is actually blog in long form. So maybe it's not a 300 to 400 word blog. It could be 1,000, 1,500, 2,000 words. And that satisfies Andrea's need for search engine optimization and content building on the website. So, and then another level, YouTube. But I caution people that you have to do YouTube correctly. You can't just drop a video up there. And there's a number of techniques to maximize YouTube for the brand.
That's great, David. It sounds like you're really talking about leveraging each of these tools and each of the connections of the people that you're either interviewing or blogging with or about to be able to magnify your what you want to express or what you want people to see or hear. And it also seems like audio and visual seem to be more preferable these days. Are you finding that to be the case?
Absolutely. I think I mentioned I come from a traditional media relations background when at the time social media didn't exist. So PR was media relations, and it was reputation management too, obviously another level. But most of us knew PR is getting media coverage, TV, radio, newspapers, business journals, that type of thing. It's a new world out there, and you have to create your own PR and create your own message. And Gary Vaynerchuk always talks about becoming a media company, and brands need to become their own media company if they're going to survive. There are newspapers going out of business. There are TV stations going out of business. They're cutting back. And if you're not really strategic in a traditional PR program, you're going to fall short. So yes, absolutely.
So people aren't reading as much as they used to be. And it's more about being told or shown what is out there.
Yeah. And it also has to do with ad revenue. I mean, let's just get down to the money. Okay. Traditional media outlets are losing ad revenue to digital strategies. So, and it's not getting any better for them. So they've had to find their ways to get through the waters on that. So yeah, so it's at a number of levels. It's where people are going for their information, and it comes down to the money coming in.
That's key. That's key because every dollar that you're spending to generate revenue in your business has to be more effectively used in order to bring that, to increase that bottom line.
Yes.
I see that we have a question in the queue. Warren, can you share with us the question we have?
Sure, happy to, Lee. So, David, this relates back to Katie's business example. Based on what you've been discussing, how would you incorporate your information back into Katie's business example on the branding?
I guess I'll take the example of the moving company. And Andrea and I share a client. And back many years ago, we went through the process that Katie described, where we went right back to the beginning. And typically people think moving company, all right, I got to move, load the truck. Bunch of guys come, we give them pizza and Gatorade, and then, the truck gets unloaded. Okay. But what they found through tactics that Katie talked about, and brand research, and even interviewing, a lot of people that actually did move, is that moving is one of the most stressful experiences a person can go through. So, so we revolve the brand of this moving company around relaxing, and everything we do revolves around relaxing or putting people at ease or making people feel calm. And, Katie talked about those words, and we came up with those words that we used in the messaging. And that's everything from the website to the physical collateral, to the social media strategy, to the videos. So that helps reinforce that brand. Do we always say the word relax? No, but it's implied through the content that we develop, through the topics that we develop for either social media, YouTube, blog, or what have you, that we are trying to get the mover and the family to calm down and chill. And that's the way we execute that through. But that was the foundation for all content and what we would talk about and how we would address it, as Katie mentioned, through a branding analysis.
Fascinating example. Thanks, David.
Yeah.
A great example of taking away the pain that people would experience when it comes to moving and playing off of that to let the pain be on the movers as opposed to the people that are moving.
Yeah. Katie mentioned, know your customer. You have to know your customer if you're going to know your brand.
Exactly.
Just fundamental.
Yep. It makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
I think I may call that moving company whenever I have to get to that.
I want the pizza.
That would be great. Katie, you have something to add to that? I know that a lot of what David is referencing goes back to what you were describing before.
And I think actually that example, and you guys just said it, but it's a brilliant example of how to find out something about what you do from your customers and then use it in your brand in the way that you position yourself. I think and then obviously carrying it out through your messaging and your marketing mix. Like that's just a textbook example of the way to have all of this be connected.
Yeah. And we even brought it to another level. We actually produced videos and collateral on moving with autism, because if you know anything about people on the autism spectrum, you know that many do not like change. So moving around the corner or to another state causes a huge challenge for that family. So we even executed some of that and created a series of videos. So we addressed it on a wide range of levels to make sure that everybody could relax through the process. So yeah.
And understanding the process of the continuum from the concept and design to the content, as David has described it, from what Katie has created, really goes hand in hand. And what really brings it all home is what Andrea does. Andrea has been referenced here several times already in the conversation. Andrea, Neptune Web is some innovative ways for leveraging, for a business to leverage digital platforms to grow their bottom line. Because if the bottom line isn't growing in a business, it really doesn't matter. So Neptune Web has some great ideas on how to do that. Tell us a little bit more about that.
Sure. So I'm going to show my screen and present a few slides as well. Okay, so hopefully you can see them.
Yep.
So we're going to talk about, I'd like to talk about a little bit about the sales and marketing process, because obviously that has changed in this new digital environment, and why that's important to help you maintain in a period like today, but more importantly, grow in a period where there's a pandemic or a very competitive environment. So, so let's talk about that sales and marketing process. So the salespeople used to be seen as kind of the go-to experts, right? They were for products, services, solutions, you name it, right? Before any sale took place. And they were, if you look at this funnel here, they were very much involved in the traditional marketing process, okay? Habits have changed, technological advancements, the evolution of business culture and how we do business, events, COVID, et cetera, right? So marketing has become more and more important. The awareness, the interest, the consideration, the intent, all that, the traditional salesperson was very much involved in. Now it's become more of a marketing process where the sales individual and sales professional really connects at the very end of that cycle. So what does that mean? Where are people getting their information? How are they getting their information, right? And in today's environment, today's world, they're getting it digitally. So, and let's take a look at some facts. Okay. So in today's world, 90% of the decision makers are never answering a cold call. Okay. So if they're not answering a cold call, again, how are they getting the information? How are they getting comfortable with the brand, with the product, with the services, with the offering, right? They're doing that in today's world through what we call social selling and the social platforms, which you know them as Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn, YouTube for videos, Pinterest, Instagram, et cetera. Okay. That's where a lot of the information is being processed on these social platforms. And in order to succeed in today's world, you have to be successful with social media. And you should be regarded as a thought leader. Very, very important. As a thought leader, you can really become a thought leader, actually even leveraging these social media platforms. Let's look at some of the data and some statistics as well and saying why this is important. So PricewaterhouseCoopers found that 78% of prospects and buyers are influenced by social media in some way, shape, or form. Reviews, comments, feedbacks. So this type of media influences people's buying behavior. So very, very important. So if you're not on social, you need to get on social in some way, shape, or form, okay? Also, note that those that are using, Forbes, 78% of the firms that are using social platforms are outperforming their non-social media using peers. Again, another reinforcement of the reason to leverage social selling in today's environment, today's world, okay? And you probably all know this to some extent and are probably very active in it as well, or active in some way, shape, or form. Okay. So in addition to social selling, there's the digital selling. So digital and social selling need to be prevalent in any firm's go-to-market strategy. Okay. So what do we mean by digital selling? So social selling, I showed you the social platforms. Digital selling is basically using those tools such as Marketo, HubSpot, YouTube, kind of Sophialytics, which is our platform, to basically, it's a platform that harnesses information, harnesses content that Dave was alluding to, and content is very important. I'll talk a little bit more about that and how it permeates through everything here. But these are the platforms that people need to leverage and to connect with the social tools and the social platforms to have a successful sales and marketing program today. Okay. Now, I firmly believe, again, because websites were always important, right? In the last 10, 15, 20 years, they become more and more important. But today they're fundamental. And I think it's your number one marketing tool, right? And the reason it's your number one marketing tool is not only because, primarily because you should be driving all traffic to your website, right? It's like the spoke in the wheel, it's a hub in the wheel, right? Because also I was alluding to these platforms. Now, what these platforms do is allow you to measure historically, measuring marketing ads and TV and so forth was very difficult. Now we have the ability with these platforms to measure anything and everything. So by driving traffic, and the website is a key because these platforms reside on your website. So you're connected to all these social media platforms as well, but everything from the social media should be driving to your website where you're leveraging these platforms to do the measuring and generating the analytics and the understanding of your prospect and visitor, et cetera. Okay. So social selling, digital selling, the platforms, very important in today's sales and marketing process and cycle. Everything is connected though through content, right? You need content on the website. You're developing content for your email marketing, for your search engine, your blogs, et cetera. So note the importance of content, and Dave did a great job in talking about content earlier. But everything has to be done through a very strategic direction, with a very strategic direction, leveraging Katie's piece of the equation here, the brand, know who you are, what you are, developing that content, and then leveraging this platform and these tools to disseminate, but also measure, engage success. So an effective sales and marketing strategy will have a great brand, a clear brand that distinguishes you from your peers, has content that's written strategically, right? That's going to be disseminated through your website and through the other social and digital platforms that are going to be able to analyze, right, and measure opportunities for you so that you can eventually close that sale. But without an organized, structured approach, it's going to be very difficult to succeed or even grow in today's environment. Let me go here to the last slide. So, oops. Trying here. Let's see. There we go. Well, that was that's, so I'm open for a few questions if there are any.
Yeah, it sounds like you clearly define the process of taking Katie's vision with David's content to a place where people can find it and generate sales and revenue. Unbelievable to see how that works. How many people are really embracing this concept? Because 10 or 20 years ago, the business owner didn't have these tools. Is the penetration there with business owners? Can you measure that?
Well, the penetration is certainly there. I mean, everybody's engaging in one way, form or another. However, they're doing a little bit hodgepodge, right? And they're not creating an integrated approach, and they're doing it very much piecemeal, in my opinion.
So really not having your abilities, David and Katie, to put in there, they're not being as effective or competitive or successful as they would be. That's a promotion for the three of you.
I think it's just really overwhelming. I think people are really this is a lot of things to try and undertake.
Right.
And to be really strategic about how you go about it, utilizing the channels, the digital channels that Andrea discussed, and the right content from David, and really having the strategic direction from the brand is going to make it easier. I mean, it sounds like this is a lot, but this is a lot less than trying to undertake all of these different things and not doing any of them particularly well.
I find that, and it's sad to say, but a lot of organizations do not like to plan. So they have an idea where they want to go, but to create some grand plan, like, pages and pages of spreadsheets of content, you're not going to see it. Some people go week to week. So.
Yeah, given that a business owner is typically focusing on what they do best, their product or service, to step back to see the value of what you provide, working on their business while they're working in it, can really help. Fully embracing the ideas that you've presented today can really impact their bottom line. And it's taking that step back from creating that product or service that's going to dramatically help them in a digital world.
Yeah.
Andrea, any more to add to that?
No, I think, I can talk a little bit individually about search engine optimization and Google AdWords and kind of why one would use one platform over the other, email marketing and some stats, if you wish. Could that be helpful?
Yeah, that'd be very helpful, I think.
Yeah.
So, the low-hanging fruit, you have to be very careful with marketing, because marketing, you can spend tons of money and not get a very effective ROI. Or so you can really spin the wheel there and burn a hole in your pocket. So the low-hanging fruit, in my opinion, is content writing. Okay, at the core, because with the content writing, you're going to be able to use it for an effective and strategic content writing for your ads, for your SEO, for your website, and for your thought leadership. So no matter what industry you're in, you should be producing some form of content. The AdWords, whether it be Facebook or Google, tends to be very expensive. Okay, but it's the quick hit solution where if you want instantaneous success, then you spend money on ads, and you're going to get relatively quick returns. More long-term, which I think is my favorite, is SEO, because at the core, you have to produce content for SEO, right? And it's a more trusted place to go hunting for a particular vendor, right? If you're on that first page and you're not an ad, the statistics show that you're going to be more trustworthy than an ad, because anybody can throw up an ad, right? But to get on the first page via a strategic effort in SEO is not so easy. And what you're doing, though, is by producing the content for SEO, you're able to produce and leverage that content for pretty much everything else. The ads, right? Email marketing, your website, blogs, thought leadership, podcasts, you name it. So I personally like SEO quite a bit. And now email marketing also, we talked about 90% of decision makers are not taking phone calls, right? So email has replaced the phone. And I'm also a fan of email because it has replaced the phone. And people do, if you're producing well-written emails, timing is right, the audience is right, you are going to get some traction there. So I like emails. And from an open rate perspective or click-through rate, you want to do, it's pretty low, but it's pretty low also with SEO and Google Ads and anything else that you do. If you're getting, 2 to 2.5% open rate or click-through rate, you're doing pretty good. It's low, but it's still pretty good. Just do some simple math, 1,000 emails right? And you get 2%. That could be, interested folks. That's, you turn those, you cycle those through and kind of go through that process, and you're able to capture some clients there that could pay off very nicely. And that tends to be the most economical. Email tends to be the most economical approach.
Andrea, can I ask you a question?
Yes, Katie.
So over the last, I don't know, maybe it was in the last year, Google has changed it, and this is just probably another reason you would suggest SEO. The format of a Google ad has changed drastically. It is very unclear now that it is an ad. So when you search for something, it has instead of having it in a box, it's now at tiny letters next to it that says ad.
Mm-hmm.
So we mistakenly click on that, thinking that that's the first search result, but it's actually an ad. So it's going to add up for the organization to be paying for these clicks when truly it's actually an ad. The person is searching directly for that organization, and their website is right underneath it, right? I mean, so doesn't that sort of go to saying that SEO is really a better spend because you're going to be wasting money when people actually think that, they're clicking on?
Yeah, it's. I mean, there are lots of bots also that are everywhere that click on these ads and it just cost you tons of money. Again, from an ROI perspective. So, the key is if you can do ads and even SEO and anything is be very focused, very niche. If you're a generic brand, you're not going to do very well with any marketing effort, right? The more focused niche you can be on anything, industry, product, the better off you are.
Great concepts and great comments there. In the time that we have left, I just wanted to summarize a little bit of what we've been able to provide today. Katie, great information. on vision, David content, Andrea, great information on being able to bring it home and increase your bottom line. The takeaways that we see are, standing out, be visible in all the different platforms that we have. Be engaged with your audience, understand the audience that you're attracting because they are the type of audience that you want to work with. Participate on all the various platforms. David gave a great idea of that along with Andrea. Be clear on who you are and who you want to work with. Katie was very specific about that. Know your brand, know who you want to work with, and consult and collaborate with professionals. This takes a lot of time away from what a business owner does best, so don't do it alone. Collaborate with professionals like we have here. So great stuff from Katie, David, and Andrea. I'd like to thank you for participating here. Covered a lot of information in a very short period of time, and we appreciate the information there. If anybody in the audience viewing today wants to follow up and contact Andrea, David, or Katie, their contact information is here. We'll leave it on for a minute or two so that you can get that information. You'll find that they're a great resource to help you in your business. So please do reach out to them as the need may apply. I think that you'll see that the value that they provided today can help you. Lastly, we do have another webinar coming up next week. So I want to thank everybody who's dialed in today to participate. Warren, Dominic, and I hope that we've provided you a valuable discussion. Next week is week 6 of our 8 series of webinars, and we'll be talking about business sales perspectives. That'll be next Wednesday, 11/4 at 2 p.m. We'll be featuring Kevin Hallinan of Winning Incorporated and Kathy Yankee of Sales Catalyst Solutions. I'll be sending out an email to our participants later today who've listened on this webinar to include panelist information if you weren't able to get it here today. On behalf of the Business Advisory Group, Dominic Grew, Warren Rutherford, and our panel of experts, I'm Lee Adelson. Thanks for joining us today. Have a great day.
Thanks, Lee, and thanks to our panelists.
Yeah,
Thank you.
Thank you all.